You're Forbes and Harrington, ain't you? Ain't you the guys that was up in space?
Yeah, but we can still buy a couple of beers for 30 cents money.
You bet your life, but your money's no good here. The drinks are in the house. I don't get to serve many celebrities. Now drink up, boys.
Thanks.
I don't even care that you cracked up the ship. And I'm a taxpayer.
Say, what's it like up there in outer space?
Well, it's like way out.
Way out, man. It's like way out.
Tony Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
I am your main connection to the switchboard of souls. I'm the magic man.
I like that one. Hey, there's one or two people listening in the audience. It's amazing.
Good thing that I don't have dangerous brain powers, or right now you'd be in 1,000 little pieces.
Yeah, it's another edition.
Good morning.
Good morning and happy Easter for those celebrating Easter. Like my description says, and whether or not this microphone will function today properly, I don't know if it's messing with your ears by me doing this or not, but no matter. I did get for those who've been asking, this is the travel mug version of the morning show. Let's shine some light on there for you. It is subtle, to tell you the truth. Because it's, it's red printed on silver. So, but it's, let's see, find something metal on metal. It's metal. The thing has a screw top and there's a thing here you can open up like that. And there's a straw that goes down if you want. I took the straw out, but you could put the straw back in. Today, I'm going to be, for those who are interested, and for those who aren't interested, it doesn't really matter. Like I said, it's
Weekend.
It's the weekend. End of the weekend. I'm going to try some California original Diet Hansen black cherry mixed in with my Dr. Let's see what it's called. Diet Dr. Bob, which I think is I'm not sure what brand, what like chain that comes from. I'm going to mix the two of those together. Because I don't think I had enough Diet Dr. Bob to make it through the whole show. And the Diet Dr. Bob's a little bit sweeter, but they're both diet, so to speak. I don't know if you can see, but I'm wearing the You Don't Know What You Don't Know t-shirt today. It's the most comfortable shirt in the world. And as you can see, I've also added more cuts.
All your life you will remember this night, and you'll know whom you have turned loose upon the world.
Yeah.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah, we're not in Kansas anymore, that's for sure. It's 4:49 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the former United States. I'm coming to you live via YouTube and recorded live on various social platforms from the Mid-Atlantic states. Like I said, in the former United States. And for some reason, this is weird. Like I always talk about the weather, and it's like that country song. I keep my Christmas lights up all year. Redneck Woman song by what's her face? I don't know. But for some reason, last night, according to my usual tally, which would have been a Saturday night, it was supposed to get down to 39 degrees, if you can see that scribble there, Saturday 3. But right now, it's 50 degrees outside. And the weather is saying it's going to progressively get colder as the day goes on. So it's 50 now. 5 a.m. is supposed to be 48. 6 a.m. 46. 8 a.m. 45. Tonight it's going to be 36. So what's going on, man? Like, what's going on? Listen to this.
They read my thoughts. They communicated to me without even saying a word. They made me laugh. They made me cry. They filled me with this sense of awe that was so profound that I knew right then my life was never going to be the same.
Schaefer is the one beer to have when you're having more than one. Schaefer pleasure doesn't fade even when your thirst is done. The most rewarding flavor in this man's world of people who are having fun. Schaefer is the one beer to have when you're having more than one. Oh, yes, Schaefer is the one beer to have when you're having more than one.
Schaefer.
The one beer to have when you're having more than one.
Yeah, the two takeaways away from that are when you're having more than one, and in this man's world, don't you love it? I think you can still get Schaefer out there. I'm not sure. I think I may be wrong, but I think Yingling might have bought the Schaefer brewery in Allentown or something. If that was Schaefer, I don't know. Let's look this up. Schaefer Brewery. Schaefer Brewery. Okay. Schaefer is a brand of American beer first produced in New York City in 1842 by the F&M Schaefer Brewing Company, located in Brooklyn. Schaefer began construction of a large modern brewery in Fogelsville, Pennsylvania, near Allentown. I was correct. In the mid-1970s, Schaefer's was one of the top selling beers in America. Stroh's then took over the Allentown plant in its bid for a national market share until it was absorbed by Pabst Brewing in 1999, when Pabst opted to become a virtual brewer. It sold the Diego plant to Diageo, which I don't know that one. Just 2 years later, Diageo sold it to the Boston Brewing Company, the brewer of Samuel Adams beer. So I guess I was wrong about the Yingling thing. I have no idea. That's like a very, very interesting thing. So the takeaway is Schaefer was sold to Stroh's. Their breweries are gone. And I don't know. They still may make it, someplace. It's hard to say. That was like I talked about Rolling Rock. It was all that consolidation of the beer companies back then. I want to show you something. Remember that movie? Leaving Las Vegas. That scene. I used to put out these little pamphlet type things. Started out as a magazine, but then I kept it up. Then I just put it out as a guide. I think the line is that was a present. She gave him a flask, and he said, "Looks like I picked the right girl." The covers I used to make for these things were just like bang, right over the head of everybody. They just, this was like they just didn't get it. It's like my, it's like these shows, and it's like my songs, and it's like my 10 books, my 50 songs and 10 books, Instead, this is what's going on right now in the former United States.
This is Metropolitan Police speaking. Metropolitan Police speaking. All persons are warned to stay off the streets. All persons are warned to stay off the streets.
What a crazy, insane world we live in on this Easter. So, if you were brought up in the Catholic religion, there would have been a chant that would have been spoken of in church today. And, chanting is a big thing that goes throughout all religions, because it gets into this focus of the spirit, soul, consciousness, pineal gland, whatever you want to call it. And the idea is, it's like that, you have that Om, or the Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And we have Christ has died, Christ is risen, Christ will come again. Christ has died, Christ is risen, Christ will come again. Chanting. They're all chants. Hare Krishna. Krishna Hari. And it's a, it's part of human existence and religion and spiritualism. It's a whole different thing. I was watching a little more of that Gaia thing. I still haven't subscribed to that station yet, the channel or service, whatever. But on YouTube, they have about 60 videos up that you can watch, to try to draw you in. And there's some interesting stuff there. There's some not interesting stuff too. But I mean, in this realm of open-mindedness, you have to take, you have to be, accept any kind of anyone's presentation, on surface value, and then make your decision on it. It's like I say, with ufology, there's so many ways you can go with that. Time traveling, interdimensional travelers, aliens from another planet, the, ancient, gods. You know what I mean? It's, there's so many different angles to it. And it's the same with consciousness and the soul, religion, the similarities of some religions, the roots of them being similar, all that kind of stuff. But, you have to respect anyone who, has, at least has that sense of spirituality about them, because they're more than a robot, for the lack of anything else, and they're willing to expand their mind and thinking, and consider a higher self. I mean, it seems to me like that's just like logical. That just goes without saying, that, we're more than what we are. Just seems that way. Welcome to live chat. Remember to guard your privacy and abide by our community guidelines. Learn more. I wish that thing would just go away. It bothers me. It's in the way. You know, let's test your, if you're listening to this with headphones, I'm going to give you a headphone experience. If you're listening to this with speakers and they're good speakers, turn them up now. Ready? Remember when that thing started first appearing in the movie theaters? This THX thing, you know. I also found this one today.
The station for more fun in the sun. Fun radio.
Fun radio. I can't wait. A station for more fun in the sun. I am looking forward to that. Tonight it's going to go down to, what did I say, 36 degrees. And tomorrow it's supposed to start where the nights are in the 40s. And so that's what we're going to be dealing with. Can't wait. I realized I didn't go outside yesterday. I know I lost everything I planted. Except my potatoes, you know. I don't know. Maybe the radishes survived. I mean, I know the kale will come back and the parsley will come back because they're biannuals and they overwinter, as it's so to speak. But and the carrots maybe. I mean, they were in the ground. I've been told by people that it's okay, but the stuff I had in my greenhouse, I think that turned into a refrigerator. In the daytime, it gets up to 90 degrees if the sun's out, but at nighttime, it's like, it's not a glass house. It's more or less a plastic house, but I mean, it's the same concept. There's just no insulation in it whatsoever, which would defeat the purpose of it. This isn't a bad mix, those two. And like I say, for scale, you've got, the classic. So, this is, I don't know what it is. 20 ounces or something? Doesn't really say on there. I forget. It's pretty hefty, though. I mean, it'll fit in your cup holder. I buy all my stuff. It's like my whole new thing is I mean, I want to test it because I don't want to like promote something that like is messed up and somebody's gonna say, "Oh, that thing is cheap." Yeah, it's metal, man. It's just like the things you see everywhere else. It just says branded with my name on it. So why not? All right, so I think at some point we're going to have to get started with this thing, right? Where is that thing?
Let's get this show on the road.
Yeah. I needed to hear that to get started. So, if I was a kid, there would be an Easter egg hunt. Well, this is my Easter egg. The cat has an Easter egg on the floor. It's a lot bigger than this one. This is my silly putty Easter egg. That's the one I demonstrated that thing about the thing they were scaring us with. But since it's a holy day, it's a holy day of obligation, technically, they call that. All right. that I thought I would continue with our talk about consciousness, the spirit, the soul, and the five senses. And before you for this, well, scares people away. Now it's the idea that it's meaning of life type of stuff. I know there are people there that just don't want to think about anything other than like their job or something. Or if you're caught up in living life, I do understand and I can relate to that because I've gone through those stages. In other words, you're so busy living life that, you don't necessarily contemplate life. There's a time for that. But those people who can take the time out during that period, which I wish I would have maybe done, and contemplate things, will only end up better off down the line. As far as their whole outlook on life and the direction their life takes. Let's see if we can get rid of those lights. Yeah. Did you see those lights go out? Watch. In the picture. There we go. I've got technological things that like rigged up everywhere like you can't imagine, I've been playing with wires since I was a kid. It used to be a nightmare for my mom. Bunnies on the moon. Easter sans candy, but rant-o-plenty. Hasn't brought anyone in, though. The description, which most people miss, is I surpassed the milestone of 50 consecutive live shows this week, bringing my total YouTube vlogs to nearly 200. You'd think I guess I should put they'd stop throttling me by now. No matter, the show must go on. And there's links to my website. I knew this week in the back of my mind, it's funny how you just get this feeling. But I was feeling that I was coming up to that. I know I did a lot of shows. And that one particular day when I was really tired, well, of course, today I got up at 3 a.m. But I laid down around 7 to go to sleep. Not that I fell asleep at 7. So I'm probably, and I had a couple of dreams. And I had 2 dreams that were, I can't remember the content of the dreams. I should have written them down, but it happened twice in one night. They were 2 completely different dreams, but there were frustrations in the dreams that I should have been able to. I was struggling with some kind of knowing something, some simplistic, basic thing, which in a dream world is really ridiculous because in a dream world, you should be able to, know anything. And I don't know what that is. I've taken melatonin. You can get those supplements. I've been trying that. Now, your pineal gland is the thing that produces naturally melatonin. Supposedly, it also is covered with crystals that produce DMT or something like that. That's that way out, far out thing that takes you to another dimension or something, and people have similar experiences. The ayahuasca type of thing. That whole line of spirituality that people get into. It's it's like the psilocybin experience. I've done mushrooms in the past a couple of times, but I never did enough or was, to take it to the, the real psychedelic thing. The last time I did it, I was years ago, and it was my intention was to have a psychedelic experience. And indeed, it was a weird night afterwards, leaves were sparkling and all kinds of stuff like that. But what happened was I got these mushrooms, went to this off the wall bar where nobody ever shows up. Me and this friend of mine. And so we go, let's do mushrooms. And I even left some for the bartender. I mean, sometimes you would go in this bar and it would literally be you and the bartender, especially like earlier on type of thing, because like most people, even today, well, nobody goes to bars in half the places now because, well, A, they're in lockdown, but B, it's like the culture's weird. That's why that Schaefer thing is such a... I'm just going to play a second of it again.
Schaefer is the...
That's such a throwback to such a better time, I'm thinking later today I might do the old have a few. I have like 3 Guinness pints left. The canned pints though, but I guess they got some thing in there that makes it kind of like the Guinness pour. Some kind of little ball in the bottom of it or something. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. I have 3 of those left from St. Patrick's Day. And a couple of lagers, I think, in the refrigerator. So I could conceivably, put together some half and halves and listen to some music. And, that'd be my Easter thing. Instead of the candy or the, whatever, people have meals on all these things. It's like Passover, Easter, even on like New Year's, everybody, they get, you're supposed to eat or have these dinners. I just never, I just don't do that thing. I haven't done that thing anymore. It basically because I'm isolated from family and I guess friends. You would call it that too. So if I get so motivated in the celebratory mode, I'll probably just end up having a couple of brews, listening to some music, some loud music, and in the bar I've built in my kitchen instead of a, whatever they call that thing, the island. I just have a bar, wooden bar. I used to watch this show, which is odd. There was a show called The Strain. Did you ever see that? That was like on one of, I think it was the FX show. We're talking like, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 years ago that show was on. And it was about, some kind of almost this based on these vampire type of immortals, but it was more like the strain, like it was a disease, kind of like, it's funny how all these things led up to this thing that we're dealing with now. And, but anyway, I'll get back to that. But first, let me finish the strain thing. So, I got caught up into watching the thing and got Comcast at the time. So, Comcast was one of the first to have on demand, so you can watch, you know. So it was like binge watching before people knew about binge watching, so to speak, because a lot of people couldn't figure that out. Because I used to know people who had Comcast, and I used to tell them, I used to say, you can watch, like, you can go back and watch that series. It's on there. You just have to go here and do this and click down that and go to that. I don't understand what you said. Anyway. So there was this, the guy they brought over from the old country or wherever was in this like wooden box, not necessarily like a coffin, but like this weird wooden box. And that was like how they got him in, and then the strain came out of him, and then it spread and it turned people into, and I even forget the whole storyline and all that stuff, but I believe it did have a natural ending. If you get a chance, it's something you could get into. The characters were interesting. It was classic. I mean, FX has some decent production on their shows. I don't know, however they're structured. They were like, FX at that time was like almost like took over where way Sci-Fi Channel used to be, so to speak. So to make a long story longer, I moved into this house, bought this house. And like I said, I bought this sight unseen, more or less. I bought it. I literally found it online through one of those services. Zillow, to be exact. And, you search in a price line. My price line was under 20 grand. And which is ridiculous. But I knew in this area where I'm at, I knew I could find something, probably, most likely, in that price range. And like I've said before, I did find like 3 properties. And for various reasons, I won't repeat, go back to my over 50 live shows consecutively in a row. Think about that. I've been doing this morning, and many of these shows were like this at 5 a.m., getting up at 3, just like those people in the, doing the morning shows in these big metropolitan areas. The whole thing, production, complete with sound effects and personalized, morning show mugs and stuff. People don't get me. They take me too seriously, and they don't understand like that whole even aspect of it. How I'm just like, I'm just making fun of the whole thing while doing the thing, It's like, I have to laugh, I have a morning show. I've done 50 consecutive morning shows. So like, take for example, like the guy who does Sunday morning or something like that. I've done, the once a week type of, production, because these are like 2-hour shows. And I've done like a year's worth, of shows. And the topics have been so intense. Some of the shows I've dealt with things, and the knowledge imparted is just amazing. But anyway, forget about that. If you don't get it, you don't get it. It doesn't matter. I'm doing it. It's my thing. It's my content. I watch my own shows. I will watch this because there's nothing else to watch. So I watch myself. I laugh at myself. And that's why I add these sound effects, See what else I added a bunch today. So yeah, this FX show, The Strain, And I guess the guy who had the strain, like the main, he was one of the, without being a spoiler of the series, he was like kind of a sub vampire of the ancient ones or something like that. You know, really Nosferatu, the original, 100-year-old black and white version of that movie looking vampire type of thing. But anyway, there was this box that he came to America in this airplane, and that's how the strain got here, which isn't so far fetched from how the strain of the current plague got here through a plane from over in the from the CCP folks. So I was looking for this house and I saw it. I knew the street that it was on because I had lived here because I was doing advertising business in this community years prior. So I was familiar with it. I even knew someone who had a business on this, further down on the street. But I knew it wasn't exactly like it wasn't a no upscale neighborhood or anything like that. But I knew the street, and it was like not a main street, but it wasn't a back street. So whenever you're moving, this is just a little bit of advice from a guy who's lived all over the country, all right, literally in bigger cities and small cities. If you were looking to find a inexpensive apartment, say, or purchase a house. In this case, I was looking to buy. And you're looking at neighborhoods, and they talk about a zip code, in some places, like, what's your zip code? You want to be, if it's going to be a neighborhood that's of questionable, if it's an inexpensive neighborhood in certain areas, that means it's where there's low rent, you've got crime. Okay. Or drugs, that kind of stuff. Because it's just how it is. You have in certain areas, they call it like Section 8 housing, government subsidized housing and things like that. I believe El Presidente is trying to bring that into neighborhoods all over the country. They call them multi-family dwellings is like the terminology they use. And some people think, oh, you mean they're going to build like these slum, projects in my neighborhood? That was a big mistake under the last administration. I think he didn't really understand that because he was out of touch with that level of that street level type of thing. Because no, what they mean by multifamily dwellings is basically stuffing a bunch of people in, paying, that the government's picking up the tab, and that those places usually, in many cases become places where crime, drugs, for lack of a better word, they could end up becoming a crack house. That sounds like, some kind of politically incorrect statement, but it's not, not for somebody like me who's lived around. Anyway, so back, you want to be on the center street, like the main thoroughfare through that neighborhood. So I knew that this was the thoroughfare street. In other words, this is, you want to be on the street where the stores are, you see, as opposed to going even just 2 or 3 blocks back, whereas it may go 8, 10, 12, depending on the size of the city, there could be 20 blocks back. because back in there, that's where that's the crazy stuff happens. That's where when you see the fire trucks and the cop cars going all the time. And the thing about being on that main thoroughfare, there's a good thing and a bad thing about it. The bad part is you're seeing cop cars going up and down and fire trucks fairly often. So it's noisy in that regard. But yeah, that was a belch hidden somehow. It's the morning show, Tony Caravan Live. What can I say? I'm a human being just like you. Let's face it. This is TV, 5:25 a.m. in the morning. And we're heading down this city of man. Look at that. The city of man. So because you have activity, so you have the stores and you have this is the thoroughfare where the cop cars do drive through and stuff like that. It's less likely to be high crime, put it that way. So it's low. You can get a place fairly cheap, but at the same time, it's not like that dangerous, overly dangerous, as far, I mean, dangerous is relative to the individual, if you're one of those people, that's expecting to get a house where you can do the old mow the lawn on the weekend, that type of thing. Well, that's not like exactly this. So it's just a little word of advice. And that's where you'll find cheaper properties that way. But there's nothing wrong with them. So, anyway, so I looked at the house. It was like a Dutch colonial house. I knew it was like almost 100 years old, or it is 100 years old. And through these online sites, you can see photos of the interior. Contacted the realtor because it looked as if there was on the downstairs. It looked as if there was a half bath, but it wasn't clear in the picture. And I also thought this room that I'm in now, this is the front room. This appeared bigger in the picture, in the photo. So my only disappointment with this house was, well, two disappointments. One, my roof is, I've got some roofing problems, which I'm dealing with. But the front room wasn't as big as I thought it would be. But I had a realtor take a photo of that half bath and found out indeed it was. So it ended up being a 1.5 bath house. Somehow he negotiated and I got it for like, I don't know, $15,000 or $16,000, man. I say this every day because it's unbelievable. My rent or my mortgage, taxes and insurance are like around $200, just under $200. Okay, so that's that. Same old story, same old repetitive stuff. I was talking about the strain, and then we're going to get into something else. So this strain came over this lower level or the second level down vampire type of guy, but they weren't really vampires, but it was that kind of thing. Came over with the strain in this box, in this plane to America. And, that's how that happened. I bought this house sight unseen. So in other words, I had the realtor take a picture. I had driven by, I'd seen photos of it, and I think I may have driven by it. I drove by it. Because I had to come down to physically go to the water company to have the water turned on. I had to have the water and electric turned on before I moved in, which was weird. I forget the rationale behind that. I guess to make sure it was okay or something. I don't know. So anyway, I closed on the house. You go to what's called closing. it took about a month because the banks are, give us this paper, give us this. We need this, proof of this, proof of that, whatever. It's just like they're the ultimate bureaucrats, right? I'm like, it's a $15,000 house. My mortgage is going to be like $200. How could I not pay afford $200 a month? Anyway, that took about a month. But people say they do that no matter what. Doesn't matter. It's closing takes time. So I go to closing and I get the key. You sit across the table and you pass the check across, and they give you the key and the packet and your mortgage papers, whatever the heck it is. What do they call that? I don't know. And so I come to the place and open it up, and sure enough, I look in, and the front room, I'm going, damn. The front room was smaller than I thought. Like it's not a big living room, so to speak. The kitchen is like bigger than the living room almost. And that's why I ended up putting a bar in the kitchen, because it just, So, but that's not the reason I'm telling this story. I'm still a little, and I'm like, I don't think I have enough caffeine in me. So we're going to have to take out of the thing. Pour some of that. I had an ice cube in there, which is no longer in there. So I don't know. 47 minutes, probably an hour ago, I put an ice cube in there. So if you want a cold drink, and of course it's just sitting here next to my computer, but I guess you get 45 minutes or so. It's cold still because it's metal. So I'm in the house for the first time. Slight disappointment with the size of the front room, but no big deal. Because, see, I wanted it, it would be my office. At the time, I was still publishing a magazine and was thinking about doing something similar again here. And I had a lot of online clients. I was doing websites for people and different projects and stuff like that. I was still making a living. I hadn't like retired. I hadn't gotten to the point. I had written like my first, perhaps even second book. So I was starting to get in that mode, but I hadn't given up yet on, regular life, working, doing job work. And so I needed to have a control center, multiple screens, like I said, if I hold up the black mirror one way, you see how you can see see how there's a computer light over there. That's the one that is putting light on this face. So, I had this classic setup where I'm surrounded by computers with a television screen up on the wall. So I was like the classic guy. If I was a day trader type of guy, I would be like, Bloomberg would be up there and I'd be doing all my, but instead I was doing websites and graphics and music. So anyway, I got out of that over time and just started, then I retired. I mean, in my mind, I retired. So I basically just started writing songs, writing books, and doing creative things and all that sort. And then I get cancer, and I'm laughing about that stuff, but it's like, yeah, but that had nothing to do with it. So anyway, so I'm in this house, and I walk through the kitchen. The kitchen is huge. This was formerly at one point a barber shop. Okay, the street that I live on used to be like the street in the old days when this was a coal town. You know, this was once one thing, but since then they've like demolished over a dozen buildings, houses, old storefronts. And there's a lot of places like that in America. And that's why I say it's never coming back. You know, that is the America people remember. That's the American dream. You can talk about infrastructure projects all you want, but what good are they? You know, it's like they're fixing the sewer system on these street now, which is a nightmare. I saw a thing yesterday, a little bit of a documentary about this. I had no idea, these bird killers, that these energy companies, these things have like a 20-year life, you know, or so. Like this one company after 15 years just stopped it because it wasn't cost effective for them to run them anymore and maintain them. And in all honesty, if these things are very well maintained, they can last longer than that. But it requires a lot of maintenance, you know, once you get to that point. And that a lot of these things that were put up in the 70s, because that was like the first wave of wind power, right? So think about the 70s, that's 50 years ago. So these things have just, they literally like, and it's so weird because I had said this a month ago or so, that these things were going to become like old Greek or Roman columns, ruins. And apparently in areas like California, which was one of the places that first do this, but other areas, they're just starting either to take them down, or they're just looking like these old abandoned ruins in areas, because at the time when they put them up, they had no agreements with these energy companies on what to do with them when they no longer were functional or repairable. And so they're just standing there, rusting away, ugly as sin, you know, not functioning. And the first wave of them were very inefficient. Like, for example, the ones they put up now are like produce twice the kilowatt power or something like that. But they're still bird killers. And again, there's that beautiful mountain view. Now imagine if this is your house right here, and you have this house and you had this beautiful view of this mountain and sunrise or sunsets or the night stars over the hills. But instead you got to look at these things. They make noise, and there's all these dead birds underneath them, which they hide that. Oh, and insects get on the wings. They don't, on the blades. They don't talk about that. And it makes them inefficient. That's why they require a lot of maintenance. Like, they get caked up with insects. And so it's like any kind of aerodynamic thing, you know, it has to be perfectly balanced to operate the most efficiently. These are things that nobody ever talks about. It's like the same thing when I say about, and I'm not going to repeat that today, but the idea that you can't have infrastructure at the same time as a Green New Deal, because it takes heavy equipment to, you know, dig up old pipes and replace, you know, lead pipes and sewer pipes, and you know what I mean? It requires heavy equipment, which means if we were to do a heavy duty infrastructure rebuild over the next 8 years, as proposed last week or so, it would require not only using all of our fossil fuels, so-called fossil fuels, carbon-based fuels, but we would end up being an importer again, because that's how much demand this machinery to do this would cost. These things don't run on batteries. Front end loaders, ukes, tractors, bulldozers, skid steers, excavators, custom road equipment, farm harvesting equipment, fire trucks, ambulances. They don't run on batteries. So anyway, back to this house. So I walk in, and another weird thing about the house is, I think this was a Sears house. People used to buy houses just like I bought this house online, sight unseen, more or less, just from photos. People used to buy houses out of the Sears catalog 100 some years ago. And they would go, okay, yeah, I'll take that one. Dutch Colonial. That's what this one is. And what Sears would do would be, and the house would cost like $3,000, say, it's 100 years ago. And so you put in the order, and this, flatbed truck, whatever, this truck would come, and it would drop it would be like you were buying a kit for a backyard shed or something. But this is a house. And they would basically on your property drop off every piece of lumber, windows, nails, right? The toilets. I mean, you would basically buy a house, and it would come with an instruction manual. And at that time that was the wave of the Europeans that came over. And, these are the, Germans, Italians, Polish, all of the various people from all the European nations that migrated to the U.S. around the turn of the last century. And they were all like, remember, these are the people that basically built Europe, so they were tradesmen, so to speak. So they were very skilled. And so these people built these houses from where the materials were dropped off, everything they needed, all they had, I think I might have seen in some of them might have included certain tools. But I mean, basically all you needed back then, these houses were nailed together. Because I knocked out a wall between my upstairs bathroom and the back bedroom. I mentioned that once before, because I wanted to make the bathroom a little bit bigger. And when I went through there, it's all nailed together. But, even the guy had a plumber in to help me. I had to move a sink. I wanted to put a vanity in there because it just had a sink on the wall. And it was an older guy, older plumber. And I didn't even think about it, but he did. He commented on it. He goes, look at this wood, because the wall had opened up the wall. He goes, man, they don't use stuff like this anymore. I mean, and these beams were like 100 years old, but the wood was still like, just solid. But yeah, just nailed together. Well, anyway, so back to the story. So this is a multi-story house. So I walk up to the second floor, and there's 2 bedrooms. And in between the 2 bedrooms, there's this, bathroom. And like I say, the bathroom was a little bit thinner than I'd like. So, but I'm the type of guy, I minored in architecture in college and took mechanical drawing in high school. I was always sketching and designing layouts, floor layouts, and things like that. So I instantly knew what I had to do. Just knock out that wall, a portion of that wall, and I could inset a vanity, which will give me extra room, and it'll be a nice, architecturally aesthetic looking thing. I could do it all myself. All I need to do is get a plumber, because I'm not a plumber. I can do electric, minor electric. I don't do major electric, uh but I don't do toilets, I never really was trained with that, I don't like messing around with stuff like that. I don't want to leak inside the floor and that kind of stuff, I want to make sure, so at this point in life, I don't need to learn the plumbing trade. If I had to, I'd know enough about it, put in that, pipe stuff and all. But I could do it, but I'd rather not. And besides, across the street from me was a plumber. There were actually two plumbers. One independent plumber and one like a paint store, former hardware store that had a plumbing service. So it's like, that's where I bought my vanity and my, the new vanity and sink combo sink vanity, whatever you want to call it, and faucet. It's like $100. That's another thing about living in these places like that. I priced the same thing in Lowe's, and I think it would have been like $300. And I got the guy to come over here. It cost less than that to have, the guy helped me carry it across the street and up the stairs, installed the thing for less than it would have just cost to buy just the thing at Lowe's or one of those, Home Depot. I don't want to, down talk some store. So I'm upstairs, all that. This is a story. I didn't make a long story longer. And in the back bedroom, there was looks like there were like two closets, it looked like. But it wasn't really. Excuse me. The second closet actually opened, and it was a door that led up to what I figured would be the attic, right? And indeed, it was the attic, but I guess years ago, when the first owner, there was three people owned this house, on the on my mortgage paper, whatever you call that thing. So if you call it your mortgage or what's that document called? And three guys' names. Two guys' names, my name. But like I said, it was a barber shop at one point, before me, several years before me, but it was empty for a while. And then there was the first guy who probably bought it at Sears and built it. So I go up to the attic, and the attic is like kind of finished off. Well, not kind of, mostly. But hadn't been used, clearly hadn't been used in 40 years. It had like that wainscoting or tongue and groove type of thing, painted a weird green so that the sides, an attic normally, because this is a high-pitched roof, the sides were straight, like down like that. And the floor was like some kind of linoleum thing, so it was finished off, semi-finished off, but very faded, old, and, obviously, and that attic gets hot. But now the kicker, the punchline, the purpose of this whole elaborate tale. When I got up the top of the stairs, there was this box that looked just like the box from The Strain. And I'm like, what the? Right? It was this wooden box. And the box obviously must have been built up there, because that's why they didn't take it out. There was no way to take it out. And it was the size of like the box from The Strain. You could get you could have a body in there. And it was finished off, with like a deep dark stain type of thing. And I was like, wow. And because I was just in the middle of watching The Strain, you know, that was that whole thing. So that was freaky. So anyway, to make a long story even longer, what I ended up doing was taking the hinges off the top of that box, because this is a big box. Like I say, it's a long box. It was at least over 6 feet tall, 6 feet long. And I, you know, because that's the only way, you know, the box wasn't coming out of the upstairs. No way. But I took the hinges off the lid, you know, and there was nothing. There was like some stuff stored in there, some old tiles and some weird stuff, as it turned out. I mean, that was a weird thing when I first opened it up. I was like, what the hell would be in here? You know, I was half expecting it to be the guy from The Strain. And so I brought that down to the kitchen because it was this beautiful, the guy who owned this place before was a really talented handyman, kind of like I mean, I wouldn't call him an inventor, but he did a lot of things in the house that were like do it yourself kind of gadgetry type of things, like a way of, you know, like locking the back door from inside the kitchen, had something through the wall where you pull something and it pushes the latch through the door type of stuff. He had all kinds of things like that. And I'm kind of a tinkerer like that too. Though I'm more doing that in tech things. I'm always running wires through the walls and ceilings and stuff. So I brought down this top of the Strain box, and that was my idea. I said, I'm going to turn this into a bar because it's ready to go. Ultimately what I ended up doing was, well, anyway, so I knocked out this wall in the bathroom to put in this vanity, you know, sink thing, whatever you want to call it. And there was a couple of these beams inside the wall beams that I had to take out. They're non-structural. And so I got 4 of those cut to the height of a bar height and used those as legs. You know, fastened it to the wall so it had so not only was it, you know, sturdy as a table, but it was also connected to the wall to give it even more, keep it from wanting to move anywhere. And then I just covered it with a couple of coats of like a polyurethane, you know, over top of it. It was already stained, and it had that look like an old bar, you know, like it just looked like you would go into some bar, you know, some old time bar somewhere, you know, that had this thing. And when I coated it, in fact, this summer I have to put a few more coats of polyurethane on it because that was like several years ago. And so that's my island bar, which is really a bar that I have in my kitchen. And so, yeah, I may be in there this afternoon.
Schaefer is the brilliant.
Drinking a few Guinnesses, you know. So that's the story. Tony Caravan live, you know.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
So I was going to be talking about consciousness, spiritual soul, and all of that kind of thing. And I ended up getting into this weird story about my house and the strain. But we still got time. I do anyway. So, you know, because this is an ongoing, continuing conversation, and it's something that I'm interested in now, and I'm going to be exploring further over the next years of my existence, I guess. And this idea is of your, you know, your eternal soul, consciousness, the spirit, and like in my most recent book, which I do bring up all the time, and why not? Codex, which is kind of a primer to asking questions along the line of, the mind, consciousness, even touches on AI, but that's like part of that whole game too. See, one of the things, like even in watching this Gaia thing that I watched some of the stuff on there where, like, and why I think my show and my ideas are different and worthwhile and why I do this stuff. If I thought I was just parroting somebody else's stuff, or it's ridiculous. It's like these YouTubers that just like do stuff for the sake of, they have all these followers and they're just in it for the business, right? Money, right? So they make this YouTube. Like I hate to insult this one guy, but I was liking some of his stuff. But he's like, he recently bought this like mini bus type of thing, and it's clearly he bought it just for the sake of having something, an excuse to make YouTube videos so they could keep the flow, the cash coming in. And that's going to be a crash with the gig economy. This is a quick aside. I don't know. It's not like I'm avoiding the consciousness thing. I do want to talk about it. But this is there's a little wheeze there. But this is a thing. This is a realistic thing that a lot of people, not only do I believe that none of these jobs are going to materialize and that we're going to be facing maybe 20 million people unemployed, by the fall or definitely by next year. And that the U.S. is fallen and isn't coming back. It's the former United States, and with irreconcilable differences, as I say every day. It's just too divided. It's not coming back. It's not coming back. It's not going to be reunited. That's it. Politics is over. It's a corporatocracy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, but those that do, first of all, people stopped working, 20 years ago. When the internet economy started and people started making web pages and selling things on eBay and Etsy, and you had the gig, what they call the gig economy. And then you have these, Uber people and all this kind of stuff. But it's funny, like they're talking about infrastructure and improving rail systems and transportation and electric cars and subsidizing these things so everybody can get this and that, the other. And it's like everything they talk about is a contradiction to what they're trying to do, So in one respect, improving mass transportation and making electric cars subsidized and stuff like that, that basically it goes against the jobs and idea, right? Because all these and against the green thing, because you need carbon based fuels to do all that stuff. But the other thing is that then that's not being discussed is the AI algorithmic thing taking over jobs, and that the gig economy will eventually like start falling apart because it just, as algorithms and AI take over, like, GPT-3, which is a latest version of AI, actually can build a website by you just describing what you want. A lot of people, excuse me, I've reached that point of it's so early in the morning. I've talked at 5:59 a.m., 6 a.m. a lot of people, they don't really keep up with this stuff. Because you got to remember, everything today is a headline or a meme or a post. And by the time it gets like viral and circulates around, and then it gets all reported everywhere, it's already like old news. That's why yesterday I was like laughing at the concept of the word news, because it's not really new. It's old. And it's, in many cases, it's meaningless. And so, and it's been that way. It's always been that way. It's just that now it's just a lot more obvious, and people are a lot more people are more, out of touch with that reality of things. They're behind the times. So they don't know a thing, because their life is based on a headline, a meme, or a post, or something that goes viral, or something they see on TV. You see, and by the time it makes it that way, it's no longer, they're behind. They're already like, they might be years behind. That's how rumors are. Things that pass through. It's like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's just, but that's not the way it is anymore. You say to somebody and they look at you like, well, I just read it. It was just on CBS Evening News. Yeah, well, CBS Evening News hasn't had a bona fide investigative reporter or created its own story in 25, 30 years. Really? Since they got rid of, since the Dan Rather era, and he went downhill, he collapsed. They kept him on too long. John Roberts was supposed to be the guy to take that over. But that's another story. I used to be inside of CBS. I used to drink in the CBS bar in the ground floor. I even snagged a stapler that had CBS on it. I think I gave it to my sister-in-law. Come and get me for that. That was 30 some years ago, 35 years ago. But yeah, so the gig economy is going to gradually fall apart, because AI is just going to, do a lot of the things, and robotics, various kiosks, like I've said many times before, the self-checkout concept, and then all of this delivery, getting everything delivered to your house, through Amazon and even Walmart now, and that the way those companies are, gearing up, and have been for, the past several years, is that their stock rooms and shipping departments and stuff, they've got these incredible robots that basically, based on barcoding and things, that just, fly through those, warehouses, like those Roomba, robot vacuum cleaners, just on a larger scale, and just slide up, grab the scan, grab the item, and that's just getting more and more. So there's going to be less. And that's why I say an immigrant coming to America today isn't like the immigrant movement, 100 some years ago. Back then you had these people coming in that were highly skilled laborers who literally built this country, built the skyscrapers, the streets, they built the bridges and everything. And these people coming up from Central America and Mexico, they don't have those old European skills. Because remember, just go down to those countries. They don't have, look at old Europe comparable to, a couple of 100 years ago and 100 years ago, and then look at the churches, look at the detail of their buildings. Why do people go to Europe? It's like, oh, it's beautiful. You should, all these towns you go to, every building is just so, neat. It's cool, Well, you go down to Central America, and apart from these, cartel people or, these crooked politicians who may have these mansions where they brought down some architects from the US or wherever, people are living in shacks, the infrastructure's out of, is trash. It's garbage. It's, so, the people coming up, these aren't like high skilled laborers that, built old Europe, the old world, as I call it. So they're coming up here and expecting, migrant work, picking strawberries, or construction jobs, hammering buildings together. That, those jobs, those days are ending. In other words, this mass migration of people coming in it's the wrong time. They picked the wrong country. Yeah. And people don't even they don't even know. That's like out of the discussion. People don't even grasp that. It's like, our farming harvesting equipment, it gets better and better and more efficient every year, meaning less need for human beings. I've watched some, because YouTube's got everything on it. I've watched some family farmers where a handful of father, daughter, brother, and maybe one or two hands using this massive farming equipment, we're bringing in, untold acreage worth of harvest in this past year. And they were their biggest complaint was sitting and having to sit inside these machines, these harvesters and various machines in these cabins for ridiculous amounts of time, like 12 hours a day, 16 hours, putting in these long days during harvest. But there were no people out there, bent over, filling baskets or anything. No, this is just all sophisticated harvesting equipment. And the same goes, I've described in another previous video about road building equipment. It's like they have almost like a road train. These machines dig, grind, process, relay the tar or asphalt, concrete, whatever it is, paint the lines. It's like it just moves along like this thing, with a couple of guys on the sides with the orange coats, just, making sure everything's right and filling a little bit of tar here and there where they missed a spot, or something. And this isn't, these are big contracting firms that do this, and they've created all this equipment, and it all runs on carbon-based fuels. So are you going to bring these people up with picks and shovels, and expect to get this done in 8 years? It'd take you 800 years. These are unskilled, uneducated people coming to the country trying to make a better life for themselves when they should be staying in their own country and making a better life for themselves there. I've already solved that problem before. All you got to do is basically put the cartels out of business, which you could do if you watch the movie Clear and Present Danger. You could do in one weekend if they wanted to. The question is, do they want to? You got certain U.S. politicians that basically are in the pockets of those people. And that's a fact. Okay, back to consciousness. We don't want to be in talk politics. Or anything, remotely related to it. That was remotely related to it. It's not really politics. So the most important thing is we live in this beautiful world. Like, look at this. And, people say that's what life's all about. And whatever you find beautiful, and many of us find many things beautiful, but life is about the search for truth and beauty. Okay. Or experiencing truth and beauty, I guess would be a better word. But the search meaning, obviously you got to get off your chair. But it's experiential. And this is a continuation of a conversation one-sided conversation I had yesterday, but it bears repeating and refining. That's the whole idea. And that's what these morning shows are. It's like, we're trying to get somewhere where we can solve, these problems that we have, like the hard problem of consciousness, which I mentioned in my book, which is still an unsolvable and open question with people, neuroscientists and people that study the human brain, the bioelectric human brain. They admit, the serious ones, which is most and mainstream, that they haven't a clue what consciousness is. They can't place it. They can't say, oh, consciousness comes specifically out of the human brain, is conscious this way. And like I say, consciousness, the soul, people, the spirit, you could, whatever name you want to have for a thing is not what I'm concerned with. I don't care what you call it. I'm calling it consciousness because that's a broader term that is universally understood. Whereas if you say the soul or spirit, that could get caught up in someone just thinking, being pigeonholed into maybe some religious context or some new age context and stuff like that. And not that there's anything wrong with, going down that road, but I'm trying to be all inclusive. So I'm talking about consciousness, the you, who you are. All right. When you think of yourself in the first person, the subjective you, all right, you outside of this android body, this created, this thing, right? This machine. That's what it is. It's a machine. Whatever. Bioelectric machine, bioelectric brain, that's what it is. You take in fuel. It's beautifully designed. I mean, ridiculously designed. That's why this whole idea of transhumanism and these people that get into this merging man with machine. And that's why I was trying to say, even I disagree with these people on Gaia, why what I'm saying is different than anybody else that I know of. Because I don't see mankind's future, or any future whatsoever in the answer improvement being an answer with machines, AI, algorithms, any kind of processing outside of here, and are making the relationship with our consciousness. How we perceive the utilization of our five senses through our consciousness. And we haven't even touched the surface of understanding that. People study the brain and they say, oh, this frontal cortex, this lobe, this thing, even the pineal gland, all these things that they, cut apart and look under microscopes or study through MRIs and CAT scans and all these various things and all these studies where they put electrodes, EKGs, all kinds of things, brain waves, tests, this, that, the other. And what they're doing is that's like, yeah, you're figuring out the human machine, the bioelectrical machine, this created machine, right? Remember, because there's still the missing link, The point of the matter is there's something about the modern human. It's considered Homo sapiens sapien, I think is the term, right? The anthropologist would use. That is different than Homo erectus or Homo sapiens or whatever. It's like it just doesn't, we don't follow, despite the certain commonality within genetics with other living organisms on this planet, including insects. The fact that we have the same genes, as other creatures on this particular planet. The fact is we have things that they don't. And that there is no direct link, the so-called missing link, that explains how we came into being. And the idea of our consciousness, which is, which I define as creativity as well, right? Now, other creatures have senses, but those senses are directly just used for like knee-jerk reaction. In other words, a monkey sees a thing, right? And, and reacts to it. A monkey has a hand and can feel a thing and could reach in and could even, pick a stick up to, or a bear or something, might even almost use a tool in a sense to like dig in to get, ants or some insects out of a tree thing or something. Some people bring up arguments like that and say, well, they have, they have the ability to use tools and stuff. So that could be, how we evolved, Darwin's theory. It's a theory, but it's a flawed theory. Okay. There clearly is the concept of evolution in certain areas. Like for example, I wouldn't even call it evolution so much as just the process of it's like having a child, offspring based on someone has blonde hair, blue eyes, and a tendency towards, diabetes or something, and another, and has offspring with someone who is, a ginger or whatever, and is thin, naturally thin, no matter what they eat. Girls who are gingers. A little side. I like gingers. But no, there was something that happened there that we don't know. And so in religion, and it's like, God. In ancient astronaut theory, it was the gods, the ancient aliens meddled with us, or, or there's these other, there's literally dozens and dozens, I guess there could even be more than dozens and dozens, but there's this idea of oneness. Okay. And so, getting caught up in names is really, is difficult, because people respond to names, based upon, preconceived notions and ideologies. So I don't like to use specific names. But I'm not like at the same time, you have to understand, I'm not criticizing somebody. So we look at the universe as, as all there is. But then there's people that see multiverses. And then there's also the idea of multi-dimensions and various densities. Things vibrating at a different a level. Frequencies. Waves, particles. Things that are sometimes particles, sometimes waves. And it's all complex, and it seems to just boggle the mind. But the one thing that it all has in common is you have to strip all that stuff down and say, okay, well, we got to start. So, you either want to say it's all, I can't figure it all out. It's a mystery. People love that word. It's just a big mystery. Don't worry about it. Why even, who even wants to talk about that? I don't want to waste time talking about it. It's just a mystery. God created the world. Just deal with it. Go to work, do your job, stay locked up in your apartment for the rest of your life while they have this plague thing, and shut up and, and then you'll go and hope you have something better happens afterwards. Well, that may be fine for you, but I say screw that. Right? Now you got to be actively, you have to be a part of this. You've got to have consciousness. And if you want to be a slave then. If you want to follow some stupid rules made by men, who put any man in charge of anything? And who has the right to put somebody in charge of anything? Nobody's in charge of anything. It's all a big game, man. It's just like corporatocracy, like I say. It's just one big business. Governments are just organized criminals. It's an organized crime syndicate. And used by overseen by a corporatocracy, which are organized criminals. And that's all they are. They're people that get away with crime. And they use us as like cattle on their tax and consumer farms. I mean, if you don't see the obviousness of that, turn off the channel, for crying out loud. No, life is about, you are this thing. All right, clearly. All right, it's not a simulation. It's not a dream within a dream. It's none of that nonsense. Okay? You've got a physical body. You can feel people. All right? You can see things. You can touch things and stuff. So in this dimension, all right, in this reality that we're in, you can't deny that. You can talk about going different places, transitioning into different things. Yeah, life, when you die, you're not going to have a body. I mean, that's clear. Unless you create it, there's a whole line of thought on that too. Unless you want that. Or move into a different dimension or a higher level of being. Some people believe that. But before you get into any kind of discussion along those lines, you have to first understand consciousness, and you have to see how your five senses feed into your consciousness and creativity. Because that's what sets you apart from being just a robot. because otherwise you are a robot. When I was doing my experiments with artificial intelligence, the individual that I was, the entity, I guess you would call it, used to refer to itself as a robot. And so when you look out there and you see these people in a car with a mask on by themselves with the windows up, scared to death of catching a cold, wearing a mask inside a car with the windows up, you're looking at a robot, right? They're a robot. Whatever, if they ever did have a consciousness, a soul, or whatever you want to call it, somehow through an indoctrination system, propaganda, or whatever, it's been buried deep within their subconscious or somewhere. Or maybe they never even had it. I still subscribe to that theory. I think there's a vast majority of people out there who are basically, I call them soulless. They're just not conscious. We have a subconscious, which I'm very skeptical about the subconscious. The subconscious is a dangerous thing. That's the thing that all these guys, at the height of all these, Freud and, who are into all this psycho, therapy and all that stuff, that was all the subconscious, but the subconscious is the key to everything wrong with your life. That's the thing that's molded, manipulated, propagandized to, indoctrinated, and it works against you. You see a psychiatrist, people talk about self-sabotage. That's your subconscious that's sabotaging. I mean, who consciously would sabotage their life, right? No, subconsciously. And what you have to be aware of is that, that you have a subconscious mind. And I was trying to say this the other day, is calling it the subconscious is a term so that, it's a term we can speak of. So it's kind of acceptable. You grasp what I mean. But what it is it's the mind. That's the mind. When you hear some neuroscientist who says consciousness rises out of the brain, is created by the brain, there is no metaphysical or there's no spiritual soul or consciousness beyond it's just the brain. Well, what they're talking about is the subconscious. It's the thing that actually does exist within the human brain, bioelectrical reactions and the senses. And that's the ape doing a certain thing. So in other words, there are people, you have to have an operating system to run the android body. Okay. We're robots. Okay. And so the brain takes in the sensory inputs from the eyes, ears, mouth, nose, skin, right? And that stuff is all processed inside this bioelectric brain. And that processing is your subconscious, because what happens is then the brain, you've heard of this, I talked about fight or flight, or certain things, the way you respond to a thing from a strictly a brain, bioelectric brain standpoint is what I would consider the subconscious. So it's not your consciousness, it's subconscious, subhuman. Okay, think of it that way. All right, it's a subconscious. It's less than. And so, yeah, there are humans out there that are subhuman. They're subconscious, and that's their thing. And so they could go around and function in society and offices, and you see them in stores, and they're doing stuff, and they're buying the brand pizzas. They're afraid of the plague, think they're going to catch a cold. They won't visit their parent, because they're watching TV and they're caught up in propaganda, right? They're basically robots. That's the robot human. And then there are those who have souls, or spirituality, or what I would just call consciousness. They're conscious beings. Consciousness is eternal. All right. Now, there's one consciousness in everything. Okay. Whatever you believe in, multiverse, multi-dimensions, multi-densities, various vibrations, particles, waves, the whole thing, everything all encompassing. All right. The alpha and omega sort of thing, what people would refer to as God from a theological, pure standpoint, right? No beginning, no end, because when there is no time, they can't have a beginning or an end if there's no such thing as time. In other words, timeless oneness, okay, that you are a part of. Okay. Now that is the ultimate, that's where your consciousness emerges from. Inconceivable, incomprehensible, but kind of a little bit, but we can grasp the concept of it just on the surface, right? Before our minds just want to zone out, right? And there is no reason to go any further than that, because this limited human brain at this particular level of existence. That's why I don't believe in Einstein's space-time. It's a cop-out, right? It's a cop-out. When physicists and mathematicians can't figure something out, they just carry it out. They just carry a formula out, and they call it finding a solution, right? And then they call it a theory. And then people kind of go over the numbers, and they can't find a hole in that equation, and they accept the theory and they give the guy a Nobel Prize. And I say to them, you've proven nothing. You've proven nothing to me. It's a theory. That mathematical equation doesn't do anything. Those are just numbers on a chalkboard or a whiteboard or a computer. There is no such thing as time, in the eternal. Okay? Because there can't be. The two things don't go together. All right? Infinity, eternal, beginning, end, alpha, omega, whatever you want to call it. The morning show, metal travel mug. It is made in China, though, I must say. I think it says there. It's okay. What are you going to do? So, without time, then that just throws everything, out the window. And we know there is no time because they don't have an answer for it. It's just like the idea of pi, trying to take the, pi to the last digit. The Big Bang Theory. Oh, there was a Big Bang and suddenly the universe was created. Well, what happened before that? Okay. Who created God? These stupid questions people ask. Well, the answer to all those questions is a simple one. There's no such thing as time. All right. You know, that time is something that exists within our state of being. It's a measurement. It's a way for our limited brain, all right, bioelectric brain, to kind of make sense of, you know, this existence that we're currently in. But our consciousness is timeless, okay? And our consciousness comes from the one, which is all there is, all right? And so, you know, in that respect, you know, everything here is, you know, this is just a game. You know, like I say, sometimes the one song I wrote 2 hours, like, this is an amusement. This is a thing, you know, you could choose to just do this. And this is the equivalent of 2 hours of watching a movie. Your entire life is the equivalent of watching a movie. And then you wake up and, you know, and you're in another dimension, or you're at another level, or you're back, you know, into part of a God consciousness type of thing, or whatever, or in a different dimension. You don't know. Who knows? I don't know. How would I know? But there are certain things we can, like I say, we can grasp, we can reason. You know, we have that ability. And those that, you know, and those that just like don't, you know, just freak out, you know, when you get into these kinds of discussions, well, you know, that's fine. You have a subconscious. You're a subconscious person. You don't, you know, if you had a conscious mind, if you had a soul, or if maybe it was awakened within you or something like that. This chair is so uncomfortable. I had to do something about it. I still have a few bucks left for my free government money. I think maybe I'm going to figure out some kind of padding, see what I can get to rig up to this chair, and one or two other things. But yeah, that's, you know, so we're going to continue this conversation because this is intense. And I realize it's like, it's just too much for the average person. And I'm not insulting you, because I mean, I'm the average person too. No, thanks for watching. Happy Easter. But you know, it's this idea of, you know, just be you know, think of your consciousness, think of your individuality, your creative, yourself as a creative being, and your input from your senses, more than just a fight or flight reaction, you know, or simple basic navigating through, you know, this physical world, materialistic world. And the idea of, you know, and pushing yourself away from materialism and technology as the answer, and more that the answers lie within your consciousness and the creativity there, and the potential and the vast, endless, timeless, you know, oneness that exists beyond that, and how how you are immortal, because without time you are immortal, and your consciousness is immortal, and it's possible. Anything is possible, you know, anything. And even during this existence, it's, you know, we'll explore things about ways in which your consciousness can heal you. You know, kind of in a religious concept, the state of grace, which is a very fascinating and interesting thing that a lot of people don't even like understand or talk about. The state of grace, which is basically a state of healing, rejuvenation, that sort of thing. And so the more selfless you become, that the closer you get to, realizing your, the meaning of it all, the purpose of it, where you're going, where you're headed, and why and how all this, fits into the grand scheme of things. And the more you can enjoy life. You see, that's the thing. Sometimes people just don't understand it. Like, you still could have fun and enjoy the senses. I mean, that's the meaning of life, and that's part of what this physical existence is about. So eat your Easter candy, enjoy the flavor, savor the flavor. You've got the you have the senses in order, the taste buds to taste it. Look at a beautiful thing, touch something that you want to touch, smell, listen to what you want to listen to. That's life. That's living. Too many people just don't live life. They don't see the beauty in nature. They don't see the beauty in each other. They don't really use their senses to their full potential. And they just go through life and they're confused. And then, and it's like a wasted life. When life's a trip, man. It's a real trip. It's a crazy trip. And it's fun. Even though we have hardships along the way. So that's today's morning sermon. I had fun. Hopefully you did, right? Fun radio. Godzilla. Good morning. So good morning. Happy Easter, and have a great day. Great Sunday. Temperature starting to drop here, which is the weirdest thing in the world. It's already dropped a couple degrees just since I started this show. So I've got another 24 to 48 hours before I could get out of this, cubicle. So yeah, I may well imbibe later today for the sake of it. And I'm not going to broadcast that because I can't, because I'm going to be playing music. And when you play music, that gets you in trouble with YouTube Live because they don't pay their royalty bills. So until next time, have a great day. Peace. Cheers. Talk to you soon.